hearing for Judge Falkenberg. We're here set today for a status hearing. The main purpose of the status hearing is just make sure that everyone is aware of what services they're expected to participate in. We have Ms. Kyler Green here representing the Department of Family and Protective Services with their representatives, Ms. Schoaf and Ms. Knopp. We have Ms. Fuller here, who is the attorney representing the children. We have the mother, Ms. Spence, here represented by her attorney, Mr. Rico. Mr. Roscoe is present, represented by Ms. Hellrung, who's standing in for Mr. Saldivar. Mr. Bence is present, who is here with his attorney, Ms. Pearsall. So I'm going to ask Ms. Kyler Green to go ahead and start by questioning her witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Have the parties met for a family group conference in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're the caseworker?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which parent's family group conference was held first?
Miss Grace Bence.
Okay. Was she present for that?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was this held?
This was held last Thursday, the 9th.
Okay. And during this family group conference, was there a family plan of service that was created for her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's talk about the services that were agreed upon. What were those services?
Submit to random drug testing, and if positive, complete a drug and alcohol assessment, a psychological evaluation and follow recommendations, individual counseling and follow recommendations, domestic violence with recommendations, parenting classes, and then obtain and maintain safe and stable housing and obtain and maintain stable employment.
What is your understanding of where Miss Spence resides now?
She is currently residing where the removal took place, the same home as Miles Spence.
Okay. And is she staying in that home?
Yes, she is.
And does she have employment?
Yes, she does.
Okay. Where is she employed?
She's currently employed at the Divine Golf Course.
Okay. And was Miss Spence able to review the plan of service prior to it being filed?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she indicate an understanding as to all the services that were recommended?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is it your belief whether these services are narrowly tailored to address the needs that brought the children into the care of the department?
Yes, ma'am.
And how so?
The cases adhere due to concerns for domestic violence and mental health, and both these will make sure that those issues are addressed.
Okay. And did Miss Spence sign the family plan of service?
Yes, she did.
Does she have a copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And has this been filed with the court?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you asking for the court to make this an order?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about Mr. Bence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was there a family plan of service held for him as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when was it held?
On November 9th.
Okay. And was this separate from the mom?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And what are the services that you're requesting the court make an order of?
Submit to random drug testing, and if positive, submit to a drug and alcohol assessment, psychological evaluation and follow recommendations, individual counseling and follow recommendations, domestic violence classes, parenting classes, anger management classes, and then obtain and maintain safe and stable housing and obtain stable employment.
Okay. And is Mr. Bence employed?
Yes, he is.
Where's he employed?
He's a firefighter in Kirby.
Okay. And then what about housing? Do you have an understanding as to where he resides?
Yes, ma'am.
Where does he reside?
He currently has a house in Divine as well.
Is this the same house that Mrs. Spence lives in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there currently a protective order between the two?
Not to my understanding.
Okay. Did Mr. Bence indicate an understanding as to the services that are requested of him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did he sign the family plan of service?
Yes, ma'am.
And does he have a copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you think that these services are narrowly tailored to address the needs that brought the children into the care of the department?
I do.
And why?
Similar situation. There's concerns for domestic violence and mental health. These will address those concerns.
Okay. And are you asking the court to make an order of these services?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, Mr. Roscoe, was there a family plan of service for him as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what are the services that you're requesting the court make an order of?
Psychological evaluation and follow recommendations, individual counseling and follow recommendations, parenting classes, to follow the rules and guidelines of his supervised release, obtain and maintain safe and stable housing, and obtain and maintain stable employment.
Okay. And is Mr. Roscoe employed right now?
He's not.
Is he working on obtaining employment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does, and where, do you have an understanding as to where he resides?
Yes, ma'am.
Where is that?
He is currently residing with his father in New York.
Okay. Did Mr. Roscoe indicate an understanding as to these services?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he sign the family plan?
Yes, ma'am.
And does he have a copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you believe that these services are narrowly tailored to address the needs that brought the children into the care of the department?
Yes, ma'am.
And why?
He is actually has not had much of a relationship with his daughter, so this will help with be able to guide him with getting a better relationship with his daughter and ensure it's a stable home as well.
Okay. Are you asking the court to make an order of his family plan of service?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's talk about the children right now. Are there any services that the children are undergoing at this time?
Scarlett is currently receiving therapy.
And how's that going?
It's going well. She receives it at school for about 30 minutes a week.
And how old is she?
She's 8.
Okay. Have you been able to speak to the counselor about the progression of that therapy?
I did speak with her a little bit.
And does it seem like it's on course?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any other services for her benefit that you would like to request the court make an order of?
Not at this time.
Okay. And where are the children currently placed?
Scarlett is currently placed with Evan Nisloni.
With who?
Evan Nisloni.
And just to inform the court, can you please describe the relationship that Evan has with Scarlett?
He is a prior stepdad from a prior relationship from Miss Spence.
Okay. And where are the other two girls?
Paisley is currently placed with Miss Emily Venegas. She is the ex-wife of Miles Spence.
And are both of those, well, is Paisley's placement safe and appropriate meeting your needs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about Scarlett's placement?
There are concerns for Scarlett's placement due to not being very helpful with helping with visitation.
Okay. And Your Honor, just so you're not wondering about the vacant holes that I'm going to leave here, I'm going to let Miss Fuller address those concerns when she questions the witness.
I'm sure she will.
Okay. Are there medical, dental, and vision up to date?
The medical and dental is up to date for Scarlett and Paisley. She hasn't had to qualify for a dental. That'll be taken care of within the next month as she's turning 6 months old. Vision is still pending for Scarlett.
What is pending for Scarlett in terms of
a vision exam?
She just needs the exam. Is it in the works to be scheduled?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do they have any other medical needs that are not being addressed?
The only other thing pending is we're waiting for the ECI referral to come out, evaluation for Paisley.
Okay. Are there any concerns specifically that the ECI will address?
There's concerns for the weakness in her wrists.
Can you describe that a little bit more?
Yes, ma'am. She's not able to hold her own bottle yet. Both of her wrists bend outwards versus holding straight out. And so they want to just make sure doesn't need any physical therapy for that.
Okay. And is Scarlett still attending school?
Yes, ma'am.
Is she on grade level?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is Scarlett receiving any psychotropic medications?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And how are visits between the children and the parents?
Overall, they're going very well.
Okay. How are those visits arranged?
Visits are for Miles. Visits are through Children Matter. As long as the schedule permits, they are on Saturdays. If not, we work between his schedule to make those work.
And how long are those visits?
Those are 1 hour.
And they're supervised at Children Matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you been able to supervise any of those visits?
Not as of yet, no.
Has anyone supervised those visits?
It's been supervised by Children Matter.
Okay. And have you been able to communicate with them as to how those visits are going?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
Any concerns?
Not at this time.
Okay. And what about Mrs. Spence?
Mrs. Spence has visitation with Children Matter on Saturdays for Paisley for 1 hour. And then she has visitation with Scarlett. We're trying to keep it on Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays, and Kyle at the Chick-fil-A for 1 hour, supervised by the department.
Okay. And are those visits appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you asking for those to be changed at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What would you like to see the parents, these two parents specifically, begin before any sort of increase in visitation?
Their domestic violence classes.
Okay. Why is that still a concern?
It's the largest reason for the case and want to make sure we're addressing the reason for the removal to make sure it's stable and safe.
Okay. And what about Mr. Roscoe?
He currently has visitation on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. from till 7:30 p.m.
And these are virtual?
Yes, ma'am.
Has Mr. Roscoe been available for each of these visits?
Yes, he has.
Okay, so he's not showing up late or forgetting to call?
No, he's on there early every time.
Okay, and are there any visitations right now that are set up between Scarlett and her paternal grandmother?
Yes, ma'am. Those are every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Okay, and have those visits been exercised?
Yes, ma'am.
And how are they?
Those are really well. They're one of my favorite visits. Is always very happy visits.
Are you asking for, or what do you need to see done with Mr. Roscoe before there's any increase in visits for his virtual visits?
Just for him to go ahead and engage in the schedule his psychological and be engaged in his therapy.
Okay. Are there any other concerns or requests that you would like to make of the court today besides the family plans of service?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right. Mr. Rico, do you have questions for Ms. Show?
Okay. So you mentioned that you had some concerns regarding the child placement, specifically with regard to Scarlett. What exactly were those concerns, ma'am?
The interference in visitation and not assisting with visitation.
Okay. And is the department addressing those concerns?
We are, yes, sir.
Okay. And what are you doing to address those concerns?
We keep reaching out to the caregiver, advising this is when the visitation needs to occur, and giving the reminders between myself and the courtesy worker and Ms. Fuller.
Okay. And in the event that you're unable to address these concerns in that manner, is there another plan of action for this to deal with this issue?
We have to be something that will be staffed with the supervisor and the parties.
Okay. All right. Now, moving on, you mentioned that if they attend domestic violence classes at that time, the department would be open to increasing the duration of visitation and the number of visits. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It can be reviewed at that time.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Hellrun?
Your Honor, if I may, I believe there are going to be issues raised by Ms. Fuller. So if I could just defer to her, and if I have any additional questions after she's done, I will ask them at that time.
Okay, let's just jump over to Ms. Fuller. I'm assuming you have some concerns, and I want to know a little more about these placements too. And like I said, I have Judge Falkenberg's notes, and so I know there was a couple of different names, discussed previously in terms of home studies and so forth. But go ahead, Ms. Fuller.
Ms. Schoaf, do you feel that Mr. and Mrs. Bentz understand the reason for the removal?
Yes, ma'am.
And we were originally told that they were actually going to get a divorce.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's not the case right now, correct?
They have not filed for divorce.
And at the last hearing, Judge Falkenberg found Ms. Bentz that she was not indigent. Did you have Mr. Bentz fill out the paperwork as well, since he's a firefighter, to see if he's actually indigent and is allowed an attorney?
I have not.
Okay. Could you please do that, because we were supposed to address that at this hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Has Mrs. Bentz started any of her services?
She has not.
Has Mr. Bentz started his services?
He is engaged in therapy.
And in regards, have you received any feedback from the therapist?
Not as of yet. I just got added because it was one of his therapists that he already had going. And so I'm trying to get that established. He just added me onto his HIPAA release.
And just for a little background for Judge Morris, Paisley's placement is with Mr. Bentz's ex-wife, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the home study was positive?
Yes.
And they're meeting all of Paisley's needs?
They are.
And you feel that they're going to be protective and they're not going to allow any contact with Mr. Bentz or Mrs. Bentz outside of what's agreed to and ordered by the court?
That is correct.
In regards to Scarlett, there was an agreement for her to be placed with Mr. Nasloni, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And he's one of
That's
one of
NESLONY.
Scarlett's many stepdads, correct?
Yes.
And in the beginning, did the department, this was an agreement of the parties. This was not a court order. This was an agreement of the parties that she could go there, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And since she's been placed there, has there been extreme difficulty in her having contact with her biological father and her biological paternal grandmother?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel that Mr. Nasloni has been providing negative feedback and making derogatory comments about the biological father and the biological grandmother?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel that is causes emotional damage to this child?
I do.
And have you any information besides what's been given to you by me that this child has actually had contact with her mother?
He admitted to it happening on one time prior to our last hearing.
And so do you feel that Mr. Nasloni is following the court order in regards to visitation with the mom and visitation with the biological father?
No, ma'am.
And has the courtesy worker, as well as yourself, had a difficult time dealing with Mr. Nasloni?
Yes, ma'am.
And in regards to Scarlett, she has glasses, and he still hasn't done the vision or gotten her glasses.
Correct.
And how important do you think that is for a young child in third grade to be without her glasses?
Extremely.
Okay.
She needs to be able to see so she knows what's going on.
And so he's failed to follow up with that.
Yes, ma'am.
And how difficult has he made it for people to actually even come to his house to see this child and talk to this child?
It's been very difficult.
And can you explain what his feeling is on visitation?
Visitation can only occur between 6 or 6:30 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. He's not available any other time.
And he will not allow anyone to see the child any other time except 6 p.m. at night to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday.
Yes, ma'am.
And have you discussed with him that that's not appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
And that you, the courtesy worker, myself, can all show up anytime we feel it's necessary?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've been able to observe the contact with Mr. Roscoe, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And how has it changed in the last visit compared to the very first? Well, let's go talk about the first visit with Mr. Roscoe. How was that?
At the beginning, you could tell they were both nervous and it was real quiet, but about midway through the end, they were both happy, laughing. Scarlett was singing songs and telling her jokes. They were watching videos. It was a very happy and positive visit.
Okay, so it's obvious she knew who her father was.
Yes, ma'am.
And isn't it true at the beginning of this case, Miss Bentz named somebody else, even though she had a court order with DNA testing for Mr. Roscoe?
Yes, ma'am.
So the agreement to place with Mr. Nasloni was really based on the fact we weren't sure that Mr. Roscoe was the father.
Correct.
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you please instruct Ms. Spence to stop physically reacting to every question that's asked?
Ms. Bench, you need to quit making gestures and shaking your head and so forth. We'll give you a chance to say something, but you need to just behave yourself, or we're going to have to, we'll have to just mute you out. All right, go ahead, Ms. Fuller.
And Ms. Schoaf, in regards to that court order, it was from like 2016, 2017. So it's been in effect for years, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there's been a motion filed for this child to be placed with Mr. Roscoe's mother in Houston, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And unfortunately, that's not set for another couple weeks.
Correct.
Is that, let me just clarify that. Is that the paternal grandmother of Scarlett? That Judge Falkenberg indicated the preliminary was good, but they were going to do an expedited home study?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And it was a positive home study.
Okay.
And do you feel, based on Mr. Nasloni's interactions with the department and with the child and his inability to provide the visitation, that this child is being emotionally scarred at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
And in your opinion, should she be removed from Mr. Nasloni today?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think there's anything else that could have been done to get Mr. Nasloni to understand the importance of the visitation and following the rules of the court?
No, ma'am.
Do you think you've done everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that the courtesy worker has done everything?
Yes, ma'am.
So let's go with the first visit you saw with the paternal grandmother, Miss Green. How did that go?
That was a very happy visit. Scarlett remembered the dog, so she asked to see the dog. She remembered that Miss Green has a piano, so she was asking to see the piano and asked Miss Green to play the piano. Scarlett started singing songs she knew and that she had made up and did some of her little dance and cheers. It was a very happy visit.
And it was obvious that they knew each other.
Yes, ma'am.
And have you been told by Miss Bentz and Mr. Nesloni that there has been no contact with the dad or the paternal grandmother, and she didn't even know who they were?
Correct.
And do you feel it's in Scarlett's best interest that she be moved immediately to the paternal grandmother instead of waiting another 2 weeks for her emotional well-being?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you think there was anything else you could do to try to save this placement until we had the hearing?
No, ma'am.
And do you feel that he's meeting her needs in regards to the provision and even the counseling? She's only having it at school, correct?
Correct. No, ma'am.
Wasn't she asked to have counseling outside of the school system?
Yes, ma'am.
And he hasn't set that up either.
No, ma'am.
And you feel that at this time is that the parents understand their service plans
Yes, ma'am.
and they know what they need to do?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel it's in the best interest that Paisley stay where she's at?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you feel it's in the best interest of Scarlett that she be moved immediately?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. In the interest of time, we've covered a lot of material. It's already almost 9:30. Does anybody else have any questions? Either Ms. Hellrung or Ms. Pearsall quickly, or Ms. Schoaf?
Yes, Your Honor.
Just very quickly, Ms. Schoaf, has Mr. Roscoe been cooperative with the department,
Yes, he has.
fully available?
Yes, ma'am.
And he is working his services and has indicated that he will do whatever it takes to get his child back, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing further.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Pearsall.
Has Mr. Benz been extremely cooperative?
Yes, ma'am.
He's indicated he's willing to do services.
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, he started services long before the department even set them up for him.
Yes, ma'am.
And he's been very open with allowing the department access and signing in all forms.
Yes, ma'am.
And he participated in the family group conference.
Yes, ma'am.
And are you aware that as of today, he's actually either started or enrolled in every single class on his service plan?
No, ma'am.
Okay, can you follow up to ensure that that is correct?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Now, considering his visit, how old is his child?
She's 5.5 months.
Okay, and you would agree with me that bonding at this age is extremely important.
Yes, ma'am.
And the department would like him to engage in domestic violence classes before those visits increase, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So would you be willing for this court to order that after he completes his first domestic violence class, assuming his visits remain appropriate, his visits can increase to 2 hours a week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Children Matter is able to supervise 2 hour visits, so that wouldn't require any issues with, placements to supervise, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now the questions.
All right. So I'm going to go quickly through this. And then I'm going to ask a couple questions, but first I'm going to make some findings. I'm going to find that the plans of service are appropriate and are designed to meet the needs of this particular situation. I find that all parents are aware of their family plans of service and have received copies of those plans. I am going to find that Paisley's placement is meeting her needs and is in her best interest and will continue that placement. Ms. Fuller, are you requesting, I'm assuming, that Scarlett be moved as soon as possible?
I'm requesting an emergency removal of this child, Your Honor. I contacted the department Friday after I met with the counselor at the school and met with Scarlett. I was told I couldn't meet with her by the placement based on his schedule and he told me no weekends, no, and so I did go up to the school, which I don't like to pull children from school, but it was actually very informative. The counselor had a lot of things to say as well. She needs to be moved. She's being coached to not speak to her dad, to not speak to the grandmother. She's being told that that's not her dad, that Mr. Nasloni is her father, the only father that she knows. She's had probably 4 or 5 stepfathers. So, but he's the only one, according to him, that matters. And he's very disruptive to the relationship. And I'm just really disgusted with the whole situation after talking to the school and talking to Scarlett and what Mr. Nasloni has done. I've also been made aware that the mother's having contact outside of the court order. And that's Mr. Nasloni. I don't know if he's an ex-husband or just an ex-boyfriend, but she's fully aware of what the guidelines are, and obviously she didn't follow those as well. We had a family group conference. She was advised that everything in the conference was confidential, and she was texting Mr. Nasloni during the conference and telling him everything that happened during the conference. So he had all this information that he wasn't entitled to, even though it was explained to her that it was confidential. I'm very concerned about Scarlett's mental health. She's had a couple breakdowns at the school in regards to situations that occurred between her and her mother in the past, and her and Mr. Bentz in the past. And I really feel like she needs to be moved immediately. I'm very concerned about this child.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Fuller. From Judge Falkenberg's notes, he says that there's an expedited home study as to the paternal grandmother waiting to move until the home study comes back. Is there any reason for that other than just protocol?
Your Honor, they were told that they needed to, I guess Mr. Saldivar was told he needed to set it. He didn't get a date for almost, it's been, the positive home study came back a while ago. And so at least a week or 10 days.
Come back. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all I need to know then. All right. Then the court will find that Scarlett's current placement is not in her best interest and is not meeting her needs. And the court will order an immediate placement with the paternal grandmother based on the fact that there was a positive home study. The court is going to order that no parent have any contact with either child other than the court-ordered visitation. I do think if Mr. Bentz is engaging in his services, then I think that it would be appropriate to increase those visits as you all can arrange. I do think that on your question, Ms. Pearsall, Ms. Fuller needs to be consulted as well as the department to make sure there's no concerns, but I'm not hearing of any concerns at this point. So I think given her age, increased visitations are always good if they continue to be appropriate. Ms. Bentz, did you have a question?
Yeah, Your Honor, can I also get a clarification before we move on?
Okay.
You said that with an increase in visitation, if services are being engaged in, is that for both Mr. Bentz and Mrs. Bentz?
Yes, I will just say I leave it kind of open-ended, but it would need to have approval of all the parties. In other words, the department as well as Ms. Fuller and obviously the parent. Whatever parent is involved would need to agree to that. So
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
as you know, Your Honor, if there's a positive recommendation for increased visitation, I am always in agreement with that, especially with a young child such as Paisley.
Judge, I think now I'm confused. So are you ordering 2-hour visits for the father, assuming he engages, starts domestic violence? Because that's specifically what I was asking for.
He has to do more than that, Your Honor, not just domestic violence. He has to engage in the services.
I would say once he begins the services, then you need to consult with the department and Ms. Fuller to see whether it's appropriate to extend those visits. The timing is what I'm concerned about, not the hours of visits. So it depends on how far he is into his services, and you need buy-in from the department and from Ms. Fuller. Ms. Bentz?
I just wanted to go ahead and make just a couple clarifications. I have already started my services as well. Also have been engaged in therapy and psychiatric therapy for many years. Also have completed some domestic violence classes and ready to do more if necessary, ready to do anything necessary.
Okay. And the same thing I said with Mr. Bentz would apply to you, but as I said, you're going to need to have consultation with the department and with the ad litem. I need to ask each parent I'm sorry, we're way behind.
I just wanted to say that my daughter, I would really like for her to go to her grandfather's house where she is very comfortable, and he'd be willing to do anything, and he'd pass anything, and he'd be willing to take her right now.
Well,
And it would be
we already have a
very-
positive, we have a positive home study on a relative, and that's what we're going to do. If you have other people that
Biological relative, a blood relative. She's not a blood relative.
Yes, she is. She's the
Ma'am,
paternal
I'm going to
grandmother.
tell you to stop talking right now. I've made the decision. We're going to move her to the grandmother's home right now. If you have other relatives that you want the department to consider, you're certainly free to bring those up to them. I need to ask each parent, Ms. Benz, Mr. Benz, and Mr. Roscoe, do you all understand what you're being asked to do as regard to your services?
Yes, I do.
All right, and I know that Judge Falkenberg advised you last time, but you all need to understand that your rights are still subject to being terminated by this court or restricted if you do not complete your service plan. Do you all understand that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, I just want to ask one more thing. I would ask that no one, Ms. Bentz, and she can contact Mr. Nasloni in regards to this. They do not need to be contacting the paternal grandmother. She was getting harassing text messages, voicemails in regards to the placement, and they need to be restrained from contacting her. They don't need to have any contact.
Right. And what I've said is that all contact will only be through the court-ordered visitation. So I'm ordering that there be absolutely no contact with the grandmother outside of through the department. If you need to get messages about the child, you need to go through your caseworker and not directly to the grandmother. Do you understand that, Ms. Benz?
Yes, I do. I have not contacted her.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I just want to clarify, I want her picked up today.
Okay. I'm going to order that she be moved today, and that Ms. Benz not contact Mr. Masloni to give him any kind of a heads up or try to interfere with that placement in any way. Ms. Fuller, you stated that the court previously found that Ms. Benz was not indigent. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so I think Mr. Rico had also filed a motion to withdraw as their attorney. Is that correct, Mr. Rico?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right.
And
So
Ms. Benz did sign the order as well.
okay, I'm going to find that allow Mr. Rico to withdraw. That means, Ms. Benz, you're not entitled to a court-ordered attorney. You're welcome to hire an attorney. I do want Mr. Benz to also complete an indigency form to determine whether he is entitled to a court-appointed attorney as well.
I completed an indigent form as well, and I have it submitted, and I submitted it to Katie, my caseworker.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's something that happened in the other court. So let's see. All right. We are set today to come back to let's see. Well, I don't know that I have that. I guess we'll be entering a scheduling order today, and let's see if I think Ms. Greenlee has probably forwarded that to me. It looks like the placement hearing is set for next week. Do you know what day that is? The next hearing?
The placement hearing was set for the 28th, so 2 weeks from now.
That's to determine the placement of Scarlett. Okay. So we don't need to, I guess we don't need to have that hearing unless Judge Falkenberg wants to still do it when he gets back. So we'll just, and I think the concern with the affidavit that you filled out is are you working, Ms. Benz?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, apparently your form that you filled out indicated you were not working. So
I just got the employment. I do my 3rd day of training today.
Right, well, you need to complete another indigency form with including what your actual income is.
Yes, ma'am. I will do that.
Do we know when the initial permanency hearing is scheduled for?
The initial permanency is February 20th at 11 o'clock.
Okay, February 20th at 11 o'clock. And I'm hoping that all of you will have a lot of services completed when we come back for that hearing. That's going to be really important because it's halfway through the 1-year time frame that you're given. I appreciate the fact that, Mr. Roscoe, that you're, even though you're at a distance, you're trying to maintain and develop some relationship with your daughter. I think that's really good. And I do believe that any increased visitation is always a good thing as long as that's appropriate and something that the child is or children are enjoying. So are there any other questions at this point?
I just want Mr. Roscoe to understand also that his visitation is already court ordered. If there's an agreement to extend it, that can be discussed with his attorney and the department. But right now it is, once a week for an hour.
Right. And I think that's a good start because you're developing a relationship with your daughter that you haven't had. And so I think as you hopefully can strengthen that relationship, then it's going to be something that she's old enough to have some input into what, who she sees and who she talks to. And so I think that's, that could be an encouraging thing for her. So, all right. So I think that, are there any other findings I needed to make, Ms. Collar-Green, that you're aware of?
Mental or the medical, dental, and vision, Your Honor, but I think that for the most part you adopted what the caseworker testified to.
Right. I will adopt the caseworker's testimony and make appropriate findings as to reasonable efforts also. So,
thank you.
All right. If there's nothing further, then all parties may be excused. We're running late for our 9:30 hearing already. So, filling in for Judge Falkenberg, and we are being recorded and are broadcasting on YouTube. This case is set for a permanency review before a final order. We have Ms. Collar-Green representing the department. Ms. Knopp is supervisor. Ms. Sherrod Buckner is the department's representative. Ms. Acosta is present. She represents the child in this case. Ms. Hillrung represents the mother who is present. Mr. Saldivar represents the father who's present. Mr. Saldivar is appearing through Ms. Fuller today. All right, I'll let you go ahead and start, Ms. Collar-Green.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Sherrod Buckner. Where is Princeton Place?
He's currently with maternal grandparents in Katy, Texas.
And is that placement safe, appropriate, meeting the child's needs?
Yes.
Okay. What's the status of his medical, dental, and vision?
They're all up to date.
Okay. Are there any concerns with him?
No, ma'am. Not related to his medical and dental. No.
Okay. Does he go to daycare?
Yes, ma'am, he does.
Okay. And are there any concerns with placement and being able to continue to meet his needs?
No, ma'am.
Are you asking for that placement to continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the child exercising any visitation with his parents?
Yes, ma'am. Right now, they're currently getting 2 times a month, 6 hours. And then they also get weekly video phone calls.
The 2 times a month for 6 hours, those are in person?
Yes, ma'am.
And do the parents visit together?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are those visits taking place in Katy, Texas, where the child resides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't know if I asked you this already, are the visits appropriate?
At this current time, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any idea what they do with the child?
From my understanding, they do a lot of playing. They do a lot of watching TV. I know with Princeton, he kind of let them know, like, hey, let's go outside and do this, things like that. I know the grandmother did say that she tried to make sure they do things that's educational, doing those visits. And then they also, when the grandparents are also on vacation, that's within the states, the parents will go there to see him as well. So they also have that interaction when they're on vacation as well.
Does the grandmother play a significant role in facilitating these visits?
Yes, ma'am.
How so?
She's there, so she's the one that kind of reports back to me how those visits are going. And then what are some things that she's seeing that needs to be corrected? What are some things that is going well? Since I'm not able to be there to supervise those visits. So she's kind of like the person I kind of go to kind of receive some of that information.
Okay. And the feedback that she's giving you is what? Positive, negative?
For the most part, a lot of it is positive, but I know she has addressed some concerns relating to, I know when the parents do come and when the parents do leave, Princeton is kind of hard to kind of calm down after those visits. He doesn't really follow directions. So grandmother did say after they do leave, it is kind of like a tussle with him to kind of get him back into his normal routine.
Okay. Are there any recommendations or anything that you need from the court in order to help assist her with that sort of regression?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about the parent services. What sort of services is the mother engaging in?
Right now for Miss Thompson. Go ahead.
No, I sneezed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. So right now, Miss Thompson is engaging in her individual counseling with her counselor, and that is held on Wednesdays weekly. Miss Thompson is also getting services through MHDD, where she is getting case management skills and like routine case management / medication management. On top of that, she is supposed to be attending NAAA meetings as a recommendation from her lifetime recovery. Also, she is supposed to do random UAs and hair tests for us. And then also what was added to her service plan was also couples counseling. And then also main compliance and employment and things like that.
Okay, is she employed?
No, ma'am. Not to my knowledge, not from the last time I spoke with her, no, ma'am.
Okay, is she in contact with you?
Yes, ma'am, for the most part, yes, ma'am.
Is she cooperative?
When speaking with me, yes, ma'am.
Is she in compliance?
As of right now, no, ma'am.
Okay, so you stated that she was also ordered to attend couples counseling. Has she been attending couples counseling?
We did set the first initial counseling session that they did have. They did do an intake, but I know according to Ms. Shauna, the individual that conducted the couples counseling, they did not like, so they wanted to go through a different person. So I did explain to her, as she's doing that, understand that individual that she's choosing, that is not like licensed through us, we would not be able to pay for. So the second person that they did choose, it did not work out due to like confidentiality of something else. And then she did find, I do believe, County Breeze Counseling Center, and I do believe they have their first counseling session November the 28th at 6, the 26th or the 28th at 6.
Okay. What about the random drug tests? Has she been engaging in those?
Yes, ma'am. So for September, she was testing negative for all substance. Those were UAs. And then I did administer a hair test on 10/26. That was positive for marijuana. And I do believe I did send her again, and I received the results from 11/10, sorry, and that was also negative diluted.
Okay, what does it mean when it says negative diluted?
So we do treat that as a positive, according to the facility that conduct those random UAs. They're saying there's not a lot of Carrington in the pee to detect a specimen, far as like being able to read the levels. So what it could possibly be that there's a lot of water being drinking prior to the test. So that's what they explained to me as to why it comes out negative diluted, but we do treat that as a positive.
Okay, and then I understand you said that she's supposed to be attending NA and AA meetings because those were recommended by, was it her outpatient facility?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, has she been attending NA and AA meetings to your knowledge?
Not currently. I do believe the last one she did attend, and I do believe was back in September. I did explain to her that that is a part of her service plan. So we did kind of discuss, because she said she was going to use church as a form of NA. So I did send her, there's a informational sheet that she can give to her sponsor, things like that, that they're able to sign off on, that I'm able to kind of track her progress in those NAAA meetings. But recently, no, she has not, to my knowledge, if she started recently, but no, she has not.
Okay, just to be clear, the church meetings that she's indicating a desire to attend, those are not meetings that are for narcotics or alcohol prior addicts, right? That's just church.
From my knowledge, when I spoke to her, yes, ma'am.
Okay, is that is that concerning to you in terms of an outpatient treatment plan for sobriety?
Yes, only because I did explain to Miss Shauna, if she uses church, I need to be able to track it, due to the fact that she can use church as a form of support, but it would not be beneficial for her due to her not engaging in actual in 880 meetings where she's able to discuss her concerns and things like that, where she's able to kind of collaborate with other individuals in the classes.
Okay. Why are you considering her not to be in compliance?
For one, she did test positive, and then also her not attending the NAA meetings and or church, because I did ask her to kind of provide that information to me. And then I know she is attending services through MHDD, and I know there was a little miscommunication regarding what services she was supposed to do, because it was reported to me that she had contacted them because from her understanding, she didn't need to do skills, routine case management, only just the medication where she goes and see the doctor. So with that is everything correlated to that is why she's not in compliance.
Okay. Have you explained to her the services that she needs to complete before she can be considered to be in compliance?
Yes.
And has she indicated an understanding?
Yes.
Okay. In regards to the father, what are the services that he has been engaged in?
Again, for Mr. Tyler Senegal, he's also was recommended to do an Ozark, which he did complete that. And he was recommended to do Mindful Innovations through outpatient treatment services, and where there is 8 weeks of group and also individual classes with that. He's also supposed to do random UAs and also hair tests as well. He also completed his psychological and also following recommendations from the psychological. Also, he is supposed to be engaging in individual counseling as well, and then also couples counseling, and also maintaining employment and things of that nature.
Okay, is he employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Has he provided you proof of employment?
Paycheck stubs are scheduled, no, ma'am, but I have seen the company's vehicle outside of the home.
Why is it important that you see the pay stubs?
This will verify if he's actually working, and also it also gives me a timeline of what his schedule. So when I'm also trying to do visits or schedule random UAs and hair tests, that'll kind of help me get a baseline of exactly his schedule like.
Do you know why he has not provided you with pay stubs?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Has he submitted to any drug testing?
Yes, ma'am. So for Tyler, for September, he was negative. In October, October the 5th, he was positive for the barbiturates, which he does have a prescription for. I did do a UA on October the 25th. I did a hair test, my apology. And that was actually positive for amphetamines and methamphetamines. And then I did another UA on November the 11th, and that was also positive.
Mr. Senegal had a prior hair test to the October 25th one, right?
If I'm not mistaken, yes, ma'am. I do believe that was back in like April or July.
Okay. And were the levels of this most recent hair test, were those an increase in the levels of methamphetamines or a decrease?
Increase.
Okay. Is that concerning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is Mr. Senegal in contact with you?
For the most part, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is he cooperative?
When speaking with me, yes.
Okay. Is he considered to be in compliance?
No, ma'am.
And why? What does he need to do in order to be in compliance?
I know he needs to continue to test negative for us. He also needs to engage in individual counseling. through optimal counseling, and then also provide me proof of his schedule and paycheck stub, whichever one he can provide first. And then also continue to engage in outpatient treatment. I have not received any notes for that pertaining if he needs to submit to another OZAR due to the recent hair test in the UA.
Have you requested those notes?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that he needed to do individual counseling. Has that been set up for him and he is not engaged?
Yes, that has been set up. From my knowledge, when we sent in our 2054s, he has to complete the intake packet with optimal counseling. And from my knowledge, only thing he did was just sign it. He didn't fill it out all the way. So he just need to go back and fill out the individual paperwork that he needs to put on there.
Okay. Are you concerned with the parent's progression in this case?
Yes.
And what are your thoughts on that?
I did explain to Ms. Shauna during our last visit, I do believe that they should be farther along, engaged in a lot of their cases. But I did explain to her that I am here to kind of help her to kind of let her understand that it is a process. But I have been trying everything that they asked me to do to make sure, reunification happens. It's just more so on their part, actually engaging in those services and also, testing negative and things like that.
Okay. Is Belong requesting mediation in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, so Ms. Hellrun?
Yes, there was an UA that was just submitted to on November 10th. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was negative for mom?
Yes, negative diluted. Yes, ma'am.
Is it negative dilute or is it just negative? Okay. Okay. Is that the one you're talking about? Okay. So
excuse me, just one second.
Since both parents are on, let's start with my client. What does mom need to do to become compliant?
Yes, ma'am. So I would like for her to test negative on her UAs and hair tests. I would also like for her to engage in NAAA meetings.
Okay.
I would also like for her to continue to show up to her parent-child visits and interacting with her son.
Okay.
And then I do believe, and then also continue to engage in services through MHDD. And then also understanding those services are recommended that she do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just so we're clear, you keep saying recommended. There's a service plan that is the order of the court. Are you asking her to do what's recommended, or are you asking the court to order her to do these things?
So there's a service plan already filed with the court. So what I would like for her to do is follow those court orders regarding her service plan.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
As far as the services through MHDD, are they a recommendation or are they an order?
They're ordered because they're in her interventions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what is ordered and specifically through MHDD that she's not doing?
So she was not doing the skills, and then also so they have her skills, case management, and then also peer support.
Is she engaging in any of that?
So she have, from my knowledge, from what they reported, she have only been to the doctor, which is the medication appointment.
Understood. So the answer to the question is no. She is not engaging in her skills, case management, or peer support, correct?
No, she has not.
All right. Now, the hair test was a low level of THC. Is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Okay. So we're clear on the record. Are you asking the court to order her not to use any type of CBD products that may contain THC?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. With the AANA, did you get the release or the discharge summary from her from her outpatient treatment?
From Lifetime Recovery?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did it recommend that she continue with AANA, or did it say either that or church?
It said in AAA and church.
Okay, so as an option, or that she was required to do both?
So as when I read the report, it was an option, how it was written at the bottom of the screen, but it never specified. Yes.
So in other words, she's got a choice between NA and AA and church, but you're asking the court to order that it be AA, NA, and not church. Is that correct?
Not so much as not church. What I'm looking for, if she decides to do church, I needed to understand, okay, who are you speaking with? How often how often are you going? So I'm also able to keep track as well.
Okay, so she has an option to do church, but she's not providing you the documentation necessary to show that she's actually attending church, that she has a sponsor through church, that she's engaging in services through church to address her substance abuse, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Let me just interject here, because I know that church, I think we're getting confused, because a lot of churches have NA or AA type meetings at the church, and they and some of them are just sponsored by the church, but they are operated as an AA meetings, and where they have sponsors, as you were talking about, Ms. Hellrung. So if there's something through church that's an actual AA NA meeting, of course that's fine, but just attending church is something different. Of course, everybody is entitled and can benefit from attending church, but we need to make sure that it's an actual NA or AA program. So that's my understanding anyway. So go ahead, Ms. Hellrung.
Thank you, Judge. That's exactly what I was trying to clarify. So Ms. Sharon Buckner, that is what you're asking. If she is going to church, it has to be a program through the church that is related to her substance use. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I just want to make sure she's clear, because she is on this hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Now the couples counseling was started. They wanted to do their own therapist, which they are allowed to do. Is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And they do have an appointment. There was a mix-up, a conflict, not necessarily information confidentiality, but there was actually a conflict with the therapist that they initially found. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And so they have made an appointment, and as long as they attend that appointment, they should be in compliance with their couples counseling, correct?
Correct.
Okay. As far as the continuing parent-child visits, are there concerns about them attending? Are they attending as they're supposed to be?
They are attending their parent-child visits at this current moment. Yes.
Okay, so they are in compliance with that. They just need to continue doing it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. I have nothing further.
Right, so where did I stand off? Okay, Ms. Fuller.
Ms. Sherrod Buckner, in regards to the father, what is it that he still needs to do in this case?
With Mr. Senegal, what I am asking for him to do is continue to test randomly for us. So those UAs that has been positive, I'm able to see a decrease in those levels. Also continue to engage and get started in his individual counseling, because I know he has not started that. Also continue to follow the recommendations from his psychological assessment.
What were those recommendations?
From the psychological?
Yes.
Engage in individual counseling. Also continue with parenting, which he completed parenting classes. Also to engage in couples counseling with his spouse. And also to maintain stable employment, as they felt as though that would be kind of beneficial for him due to the relationship.
So did you ask Mr. Senegal for pay stubs?
In the beginning, I did, but not recently. No.
Okay. So can you do that to verify his employment?
Yes.
In regards to the plan, is the plan still family reunification?
Yes.
Okay. And so, Mr. Senegal is clear that he needs to provide negative drug tests, do individual counseling, and do couples counseling.
Yes, ma'am. And then also continue to meet with outpatient mindful interventions and whatever recommendations that they see fit due to the recent positive results. Because it could be they would make him redo the Ozark, sorry.
Okay, well, when will you find out that recommendation from his outpatient so he can begin that service if there's a new service?
I did send, so anytime I am given any results back, I do send them to Mindful Innovations. I can give them a call today or before the end of the week just to kind of see, you know, what is the plan moving forward regarding services. I don't know if they're going to add additional weeks to his services or, again, make him retake the Ozark.
Okay, but he's engaged in his outpatient, as far as you know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and his visits go well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to see from Mr. Senegal?
Just making sure that he's still, you know, trying to produce negative hair tests or urine tests. Also understanding when he's doing his services, Ms. Thompson is not in the room or providing information to his service providers. So just making sure that we want the best for him, well, both, so that we can make sure that they both set up for success.
Okay, and so, and you've explained that to Ms. Thompson and Mr. Senegal that they need to be separate when they're doing their services. Have you explained that to them?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Acosta.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Shard-Buckner, with regard to the child, Princeton is currently engaged in therapy, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how has the therapy been going?
The therapy has been going really good, according to the therapist, because I do believe they've only met maybe 4 times, I do believe.
But you believe it's in his best interest to continue the therapy, is that correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. With regard to the parents, they're currently in a relationship, correct?
Yes.
Great. Is it concerning that they're both currently using?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Is it concerning that they're using illegal
Right.
substances?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that it would be fair to allow the placement, the ability to stop visits if either parent appears to be under the influence of meth or marijuana or alcohol or any substance?
If the caregiver feel as though it is in the best interest of the child, if the parents are under the influence at the time of the visit, then yes, you should be able to have the authority to stop those visits.
Okay. Is it concerning that we're this late in this case and we're having positive drug tests?
Yes.
Is there a concurrent permanency goal?
Yes.
What is the relative adoption?
Yes, ma'am.
When was Mr. Senegal first referred to individual therapy?
I do believe I made the initial report for individual counseling, I do believe back in April of this year.
Okay, and he still has yet to engage in therapy. Is that correct?
He was engaging in therapy, but from my understanding, there was a lot of miscommunication regarding scheduling, with him not getting on for those appointments, you know, his work schedule. And then there was also concerns regarding the therapist was reaching out to him on social media. So we decided to move with a different therapist.
Okay, and when did all of that occur?
I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you know, okay, one of the mother's requirements is to maintain employment, correct?
Yes.
And is she employed?
No, ma'am, not at this current time.
Do you know what she does? during the day?
Besides her services, no, ma'am.
Okay. And have you spoken to her about obtaining employment?
Yes, ma'am. And I know to her that she wanted to become her mother's caretaker. So I know that was something that she was waiting to kind of go through the process for.
Okay. And do you know whether or not she's followed through with becoming her mother's caretaker?
From the last time I spoke with her, it's just waiting on documentation. So I'm not sure if she applied just yet. So I don't know the whole realm of the scope of how that's going to be performed, rather if she has to go do a job like interview, or is
Okay.
it something done through insurance?
Has she provided you with any documentation that she started the process?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you think it's important for Mr. Senegal to get his drug use under control?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you think that it would be prudent for this court to order him to another OSAR to address that?
Yes.
Okay. And with mom's drug tests the way that they've been, do you think it would be prudent to order mom to another OSAR as well?
Mom did say she has an appointment with Lifetime Recovery. I do believe in December the 12th, I do believe. So I just have to get with her to kind of see if that will be her re-engaging in services. I think she said it'll be an intake, I do believe.
Okay.
I think I just got the information last night.
All right. And was there a recommendation for mom to attend Al-Anon?
As in, so from my knowledge, it would be in the AA meetings.
Okay, but not Al-Anon.
Not from my understanding, no, ma'am.
All right. What kind of verification do they need to give you for NAAA meetings?
So so we have a spreadsheet that it keeps tracks of all of their NAAA meetings that they go to, and then once they're done, I also get a copy of that, because what they were sending me was like in the beginning was like screenshots of like the class, and I explained to them that that wasn't going to work. So what ended up happening, the instructor from that particular class would email me letting me know like, hey, they attended this session on this date, Miss Thompson and Mr. Senegal.
Okay, so you're getting confirmation from the actual administrators of the meetings.
The previous NAA meetings that they did go to in the beginning, yes.
Okay, but how are you getting confirmation now?
They haven't been.
Okay, all right. I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right, we're quite a bit behind. We need to kind of move on with this. What I will say, what I'm hearing is that parents have engaged in a number of services, but we seem to be very slow in making progress. And it seems like everybody has mentioned that the hope was that we would be farther along at this stage of the case, because we're almost at the end and we're set actually for trial in January. So I need the parents to understand that it's really important that you complete these services. And what I will say from my personal viewpoint, the drug use is critical. And so as long as you're still using drugs, it almost doesn't matter if you go to couples counseling or, whatever else you're doing, going to church or whatever, is if you're still using drugs, you're not going to be able to get your child returned to you. Do you both understand that? Okay, I see you nodding, but I need you to understand that your rights are still subject to being restricted or even terminated. And you've been offered a lot of services. You've got to get in an accredited NAAA class. You've got to go to accredited or authorized rehab. I am going to order another OSAR for Mr. Senegal. You all need to take this seriously. I feel like you're just kind of limping along and you think you're doing a lot of stuff, but we're not getting anything really accomplished. With MHDD, you're doing part of what you're supposed to do, but not really completing it. So with the MHDD, you're going for the medical appointment, but you're not really engaging in the other services. So it's like, and with the counseling, we start those and then we don't finish them. So I am concerned that we're just not seem to be following through adequately for given the time period that we have. I feel like the visits are sounds like are going well. I do think that The caregiver should have the authority to discontinue those visits if she feels like, there's the parents are impaired. And I would say that should apply in any case, really. But it sounds like they're pretty extended visits, so I'm not inclined to increase those visits any until we can see some more real progress here. We are set for trial on January the 9th at 10 o'clock. I'm going to order the case to mediation prior to that date. And I do want to make sure that the child continues in therapy. Parents are ordered to complete the court-ordered services that have been previously required by this court. Do you have a question, Ms. Thompson? You're on mute.
I will talk to her after the hearing.
Okay. All right. I'm glad that I think we've gone over this in quite a bit of detail. So I'm hoping that you all understand exactly what you need to do. You both have attorneys that you can speak to if you don't understand anything, and you also have a caseworker that you can talk to. I'm going to continue the child in her current placement or his current placement, and find that is in the best interest of the child to continue that placement, and that placement is meeting his needs and is in the best interest of the child. This case is on an extension. We have Ms. Kyler Green and Ms. Sherrod Buckner here representing the department. Ms. Fuller is here on behalf of Mr. Saldivar as the attorney ad litem for the child. Ms. Acosta represents the mother. Is the mother present, Ms. Acosta?
No, Your Honor, and I'm announcing not ready. I have not had contact with her.
Okay. And Ms. Pearsall represents the father, Mr. Ramirez. Is he present?
Judge, actually, Mr. Ramirez was just ruled out by a DNA test. I haven't seen an order stating he's not the father, so that needs to be addressed. So I'm just here for the unknown father.
Okay.
And I'm not ready on.
And what I'll do is I'm going to overrule you, or both of your not readies. When we get the, what happened here? When we get the order of non-paternity, Judge Falkenberg can sign that order and appoint you, Ms. Pearsall, as the unknown father. There may be, it may be already in the order.
I'm already appointed to unknown, Judge.
Okay. All right. So for now, we'll just presume that you're here representing an unknown father. So that should mean your participation is somewhat limited. So as I said, we're here today for a permanency review before final order. We don't have a parent or an intervener present, so I'm hoping we can go through this rather quickly. Ms. Kyler Green, why don't you start?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Mr. Buckner, where's the child placed?
She is currently in effective CANS placement.
And is that placement safe and appropriate, meeting the child's needs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is the child receiving any services?
Yes, ma'am. Currently, right now, she is receiving OT, occupational therapy. She is receiving speech therapy and also physical therapy.
And are those are treatments assisting the child at this time, and you were requesting that they continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any other services the child is receiving?
No, ma'am.
Are her medical, dental, and vision up to date?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. Is the child exercising any visitation with the mother?
No, ma'am.
And was the child exercising any visitation with the alleged father at that time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. When was the last time the child visited mom?
If I'm not mistaken, I think she had only one visit. I do believe back in November of 2022.
Okay. What sort of reasonable efforts has the department belong made in regards to actually, let me ask you this first. What's the permanency goal in this case?
It would be relative adoption.
Okay. And is that considering the fictive kin placement?
Yes.
Okay. What sort of reasonable efforts has belong made in regards to facilitating this goal of relative adoption?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
What sort of reasonable efforts have you made in order to facilitate this goal of relative adoption?
We are making sure, well, I want to make sure I explain it correctly. So with me, what I have been doing is making sure I am meeting with the current placement, making sure that they have everything that they need for Josephina. They're making sure that they're attending all of her medical necessary appointments and all of her services. And then also making sure that they are speaking with their kinship worker to ensure that they get licensed and completing those services they need to do in order to have the paperwork on file before we can proceed with the adoption. What else have we? And we just kind of there to kind of support just to make sure nothing kind of falls through the cracks.
How long has Josephine been with this placement?
I do believe July, of this year.
Was there a home study conducted for the interveners?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were the results of that home study?
There were concerns regarding there were dogs in the home that would appear to be aggressive. And in the report, it stated that the intervener, the grandmother, had to keep the dog away with like a 9-inch pole. And then also there was concerns regarding on the report, what Ms. Belinda Gutierrez had a APS case and also a child protective case that was also ruled as undetermined. So the possibility of being a protective parent was also our concern regarding the home study. And then also the concern that Ms. Gutierrez was also the power of attorney of Ms. Macias, and that she was aware of the current state that she was in, with also not assisting with her getting prenatal help and or ensuring that her mental health during that time was also addressed. So like ensuring that she's seen a psychiatrist and was taking her medication.
Okay. And just to inform the court, this child was born positive?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to meet with the mom recently?
Yes, I met with her on last Thursday.
Okay. Where did you go?
The Medina County Jail.
Okay. And how long has she been incarcerated?
I do believe since August.
Okay. And do you have a date of release for her?
Right now she does not have a release date.
And do you know why she's incarcerated?
From my understanding, it was burglary. I'm sorry, not burglary. I apologize. It was for aggravated assault, shoplifting.
Okay. Were you able to speak to the mom about her service plan?
I tried. But in the conversation, I could tell that cognitively, she wasn't understanding the questions that I was being asked.
Can you describe her affect to the court?
With Ms. Macias, she had a very flat tone, where she was not able to sit still. When I did ask her if she's seen a doctor, or if she's seen the doctor while she's there, she really couldn't give me like a definitive answer. I even tried to ask her if there was any potential fathers for Josephina. She kind of gave me like a malicious laugh during the conversation, and then she was just very jittery, needed me to kind of restate the question in a way that was very simply worded, either yes or no.
Okay. I want to in regards to any potential father, did she answer the question as to whether or not there were any other potential fathers?
No, she just gave like a malicious laugh as if it was a joke.
And throughout the course of this case, have you been able to ask any family members or family friends if they have any indication as to who another potential father could be for this child?
I did ask her mother, and her mother said she did not know. So I wasn't able to get any information out of her. And then when I asked her sister, Miss Cassandra, she also said that she didn't know because they didn't even know that she was pregnant.
Okay. Do you feel like you've done your due diligence in being able to discover any unknown father?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you requesting mediation in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. At this time, would mom be considering compliance with her service plan?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
All right, so let's go to Ms. Acosta. Do you have any questions?
Your Honor, if I may interrupt for just a moment, I'm in another court and they accommodated me because I thought I had a 10:30 in here, but the judge is calling me for a hearing. Would it be possible just for me to ask 2 questions and then be excused?
Yes, go ahead. Ms.
I
Dunn.
apologize very much. I'm very
That's
sorry.
okay. I'm sorry we're running late. I know it's challenging.
No, that's okay. Ma'am, would you agree that many of the concerns in the home study are things that could have been addressed and can be rectified?
Pertaining to the
Yes or
dog? No.
Okay. And have you taken any steps to continue to work with the grandparents in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I lied. I think it's 3 questions. What steps have you taken to continue to work with them?
So I do try to meet with Ms. Gutierrez every month pertaining to the home study related to like far as her dogs. What would be other alternatives for her dog? Are they able to leave? Does she have, kind of like a secret place for them to go? And then far as like the results that came back related to APS and CPS, I did explain to her that was something that I could not control due to once we do run those reports and we read some of those allegations, I'm not able to fix that portion of the section that was reported.
Okay. Are you able to request a risk evaluation?
Yes, ma'am, but I have to look, but I do believe one was given, but I have to double check.
Okay. Thank you. And Your Honor, we are in agreement to mediate as well.
Okay, and just so you know, before you leave, I'm not going to make any changes of placement today. I'll leave that up to you all to keep, dealing with that issue. So, and I will order the case to mediation. So thank you, Ms. Dial. Excuse you now. Does anybody else have, it sounds like there's not a lot of movement on this case. Does anyone else have questions for Ms. Sherrod-Buckner?
I have some questions, Judge.
All right.
Just briefly. Ms. Sherrod-Buckner, when you spoke with Ms. Macias, did you get the impression that she understood what you were talking about?
Related to her case within legal?
Yes.
Yes, when I asked her straightforward questions, such as, do you know me? Do you have a daughter? Is it a boy or girl? So those simple questions, yeah, she's able to answer.
Okay. Did you ask her any questions about her service plan?
In my very first meeting with her, yes. Because I did have it printed out. So I wanted her to like physically look at it. And so I did explain to her what services was recommended to her. But from her, she just kept saying, I don't have a CPS case. I don't have a CPS case. So I wasn't able to go into the service plan.
Okay. So based on your interactions with her, does it seem like she does not have a good understanding of why she's involved with this case?
Yes.
So she does not. Is that correct?
I don't think she understands.
Okay. And would you agree that communicating with her is difficult?
Yes.
I
mean, if I may, I don't want to use the word difficult. I think she just need a lot of more speaking to when like trying to understand certain like questions or what is being asked. I don't want to use the word difficult.
Okay. But is it your understanding that she appears to need some help understanding the things that are being explained to her? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you presented her with her service plan, would you agree that she did not understand what it was for?
Correct.
Well, Your Honor, I'm going to object to
Your Honor, she already answered the question. I think the objection is late.
well,
I think we understand what she's saying. Let's just move on.
I'll move on, Judge.
And Your Honor, I'm going to get off the hearing. I'm sorry, Irene, because Mr. Saldivar's on. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fuller.
Yes, Judge, thank you.
Thank you.
And just one last question, Judge. The fictive kin placement, how are they fictive kin?
So from my understanding, she was already placed there previously in the beginning of the case. Before Josephina was moved to, I do believe, an aunt placement. So they was already some way of knowing her. So that's why it's considered the fictive kin.
Okay, but to be clear, it's a foster placement, correct?
Yes.
And this is not someone who was recommended by the parents or by the interveners, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right. So it seems to me, and I'm going to sum up and turn it over to you all again, but it seems to me that in this case that we have no parent who is in compliance with the plan of service. We have Mr. Ramirez has been excluded as the father, although I don't know that we've seen any kind of an order or documentation of that. So if anybody has that, we need to provide that to the court or file that with the court. The court will find that it's in the best interest of the child to continue in the current placement, that placement is meeting her needs, and that it's in the best interest of the child to continue that placement. The court approves the permanency plan as relative adoption. I feel like however you all want to work out as far as looking into the grandparents as opposed to the current placement, I'm not going to get in the middle of that. I think those are issues that are usually explored throughout the course of the case. I am going to order this case to mediation, though. We're set for final trial on February 13th at 11:30. So you need to get that case set for mediation. Does CASA have any specific recommendations in this particular case? Talked about
well, I just would like to say that she has been in her current placement since May, because the placement that the mother or the family had requested was determined to be unfit. So there's that history too. And I highly recommend she remain where she is. She's doing very, very well, and all of her needs are being met.
It sounds like they're getting a lot of services for her at this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I guess that's all. We don't have a parent to admonish. As I said, we'll continue Ms. Pearsall as the attorney for an unknown father, but we need to continue to make efforts to try to see if we can identify an actual person. But it sounds like the mother definitely has some cognitive challenges or emotional challenges that are interfering with her ability to function.
Your Honor, can I make a request?
Yes.
Judge, previously, Ms. Acosta was kind enough to allow me to talk to her client. And that's actually how we found Mr. Rodriguez. We kind of tracked it through a friend of a mother, and we eventually tracked his way to him. And he was an option, but obviously DNA test showed otherwise. And I know Ms. Acosta has been very kind to continue to allow me to talk to her client. I just wanted to seek the court's permission to reach out to her now that we know where she's again, and see if I can get any more information from her.
Well, I'm not going to go there, because if you're representing an unknown father, your obligation is to try to make sure that the department is doing their due diligence to locate that person. Ms. Acosta indicated at the beginning of this hearing that she hasn't met with her client. So I would think that she could meet with her client first. And if she feels like it would be helpful for someone else to meet with her, then I think she could get, requests from Judge Falkenberg whether he would authorize that. I just don't want to authorize continual attorney's fees. That's not really my role here, I don't think so.
And Judge, just to clarify, I have had prior contact with Ms. Macias. It just hasn't been recent. And to be honest, it's not very fruitful.
Well, and I didn't mean to say you had no contact with her, but you indicated not ready. But now that it seems like nobody knew she was in jail. And so now that we've located her, I thought, perhaps it would be helpful. And also, CASA might want to meet with her and see if they have any luck getting information from her. So, all right, anything else? All right, then if there's nothing further, then all parties may be excused.
That is not
Thank you.
accurate. It has people's names
you.
in it that did not attend the family group conference. We just had the family group conference yesterday. It said that the conference was on November 2nd, and the information in it is just completely inaccurate. I don't know why it was filed without my client's signature on the 7th. We didn't have the family group till yesterday.
Okay. And is this the first family group conference?
Second one, Your Honor.
Second. Okay. So there is already one plan of service on file. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So unless I hear otherwise, we can just leave that pending until y'all can circulate that. So I'm going to go ahead and call the case. The case is set for an initial permanency hearing. And we have Miss Tyler Green here representing the department. Miss Knob and Miss Powell are also representatives of the department. Ms. Fuller is here on behalf of the mother, Ms. Grissom, who is present. Mr. Saldivar is the attorney and guardian ad litem in the case, and he's present. Okay. All right, you may go ahead, Ms. Keller Green.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Powell. Where is Lane placed?
He is currently placed at the Houston House of Hope RTC in Baytown, Texas.
Okay, is that placement safe, appropriate, meeting the child's needs?
Yes, ma'am.
What is his grade level?
He is currently in the 10th grade.
Okay, how's school going for him?
At this point, Lane he isn't passing any of his courses. He's not passing any of his classes.
Okay, and I know this has been an issue that I guess all parties are working towards. What is being done to help this child with his educational needs?
He currently has an IEP in place, which speaks to behavioral modifications and accommodations. And we've all decided that we would get him tested, evaluated for possible intellectual disabilities. That is something that I will be working on, and possibly getting Lane an advocate. Lane has also it's been suggested that he attend credit recovery. He has agreed to attend credit recovery.
Is the school helping as well to address his needs?
They're attempting to, with the behavioral modifications
Okay.
and offering credit recovery.
Okay. Are you in contact with them in order to make sure that we're all on top of it?
Yes, ma'am. I do have the contact information for the person that handles that.
Is he working?
He was set to begin work today.
And do you think that it's in his best interest to be able to have the ability to have a job as a teenager?
Considering the incidents that occurred overnight, no.
Okay, what happened overnight?
Lane, after I met face-to-face with him, Lane ran away from the placement twice. He returned on his own at 12:52 this morning.
And do you know why he ran away?
He does not. He stated he was bored with the placement.
What do you think it had to do with?
Credit recovery.
Why do you think that that's such an issue for him?
Lane has let myself and the director know that he would rather either get a GED or drop out of school.
Is it possible for him to get a GED?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I do apologize.
Just to remind the court, this is a JMC case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What other services is Lane receiving?
Lane receives individual counseling, and he was enrolled in substance abuse counseling. However, he has declined again for the second time to attend substance abuse therapy.
Why does he need substance abuse therapy?
At the end of last month, Lane returned from school back to the RTC. They found a vape on his person, and he was also high, and he admitted that he'd been smoking marijuana and nicotine at school.
And has he indicated why he's declining the therapy?
He told me yesterday evening that he just didn't want to, that it was boring, and that most of the people in there are on hard drugs and he is not.
Okay. Is he in any sort of criminal trouble?
His probation was lifted September 6th. His community supervision, was lifted on the 6th of September.
Because he completed all the necessary steps?
His check-ins, yes.
Okay. Is he having any issues at the placement itself?
Any issues?
Any behavioral issues at placement?
Yes, he has. Yes. He's had three or four major incidents between September and last night.
Has the placement indicated a potential for giving notice of him, or do they intend to keep him?
As of last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, they stated they're moving forth with a 14-day discharge.
Okay, and what is Belong's plan?
We will search for placement for Lane.
And will your search be based on his needs or location?
His needs.
Okay, are you going to look locally, but stateside first?
We can suggest that the placement team does that. Yes.
I guess I shouldn't say stateside. I guess I mean within the state.
Yes.
It's a military background.
We don't need to go overseas. Okay. What about his medical, dental, vision? Are those up to date?
Yes, ma'am.
And is he receiving psychotropics?
Yes.
Okay. Are those up to date? Is that review up to date?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you requesting any other services for him?
We did request grief counseling, and it looks like they have yet to implement that into his individual counseling. I would like for him to attend the substance abuse therapy counseling alongside of his individual counseling.
Okay, that's been requested and that's been ordered, correct? It's just whether or not he'll actually go.
The substance abuse counseling has not, that's fairly new, that issue, but yes, individual counseling, he is attending. So he's not walking out. So he is attending his weekly therapy sessions.
And do you think they're helpful?
Yes, his behavior was getting better. We were surprised at yesterday's incident.
Okay, are you asking the court to continue those?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What about for his mother? Is she receiving any services?
Yes, ma'am. She's attending individual counseling on a bi-weekly basis. And we are attempting to get her into parenting classes that fit the situation better than what I've suggested so far.
A specific parenting of a child of this nature?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does mom exercise any visitation with Lane?
Yes, she does.
And are those visits appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in his best interest for those to continue?
Yes, ma'am.
How often is she seeing him?
It's once a month in person. She talks to him frequently, but considering work and financial issues, she hasn't made it over to Baytown to see him as of recent.
Okay. Is there any sort of financial stress that prevents mom from being able to engage with Lane anymore?
Yes, ma'am. They've recently cut off the death benefits, or they put them on hold rather.
Can you explain that to the court a little bit better?
Yes. Once Social Security ascertained that Lane was in care, they discontinued. Took a while, but they put a hold to his death benefits, his RSDI. Sorry. Right now it's being held, from what I understand, and that factored largely into her family budget. So without that, it's difficult for her to make that trip overnight with hotel expenses and other expenses while trying to maintain her family, take care of her son that's still at home. So it was a blow to her budget.
Do you think that it is in Lane's best interest for his mom to be able to travel to visit him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and just to be clear, you're saying that the cutting off of those death benefits to mom has prevented her from being able to visit him as she was.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. I don't have anything further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Fuller?
Miss Powell, in regards to the last court order, has there been a developmental specialist assigned to Lane?
We have had difficulty getting that arranged.
Okay, and so that was ordered back on August 31st, or hold on one second. That was ordered on August 17th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the mom was ordered to be able to attend those meetings with a developmental specialist?
Yes, ma'am.
And so how come they haven't been set up?
We've just had difficulty between myself and with the help of the RTC of getting a hold of anyone, but we can continue to work on that.
Okay, and you understand that that's a court order?
Yes, ma'am.
Was a neuropsychological evaluation done on Lane?
We've also had an issue getting that taken care of. There's only one in the area that deals with pediatrics.
Okay, so again, that's a court order and that hasn't been completed, correct?
I can continue to work on that.
Okay. And then in regards to your the court ordering that mom be the secondary medical consenter on his form, was that changed?
I believe she's primary, but I can change that as well.
Well, on August 14th, if that's the last consenter that I received, she's not even listed. So has it been changed?
Yes, she's primary consenter with myself as secondary.
Okay. And then in regards to your report, you say that Ms. Grissom needs to participate in individual therapy.
Yes, ma'am.
And she's doing that bi-weekly, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That she is to do the parenting classes, but that has been an issue that there's been a problem with getting that set up, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And that is out of both myself and Ms. Grissom's control.
Okay, so that's no fault of her own.
No, it is not.
And she's supposed to obtain employment.
Yes, ma'am. And she has.
And she has. And is she actively looking for housing?
Yes, she is.
So why is it in your report to the court, you say that she's in partial compliance when she's done everything that's been asked of her or is continuing to do, attempting to do what is needed? Why is she in partial compliance?
Because of the parenting. And as I stated, that is of no fault of her own.
Well, if that's no fault of her own, then she shouldn't be held, that shouldn't be held against her. If that's the reason she's in partial compliance, that's not her fault, correct?
Correct.
So actually she's in full compliance with her plan of service. Correct?
Yes.
In regards to documentation being, this is a JMC case, correct?
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Grissom is entitled to therapy notes for her son, correct?
Yes, she is.
Has she received any?
I just received them a week ago myself. So I can forward those to Ms. Grisham.
Okay, so we're almost 6 months into the case, and so she hasn't received any. Has she received his school records?
I have not received those either, but I can work on that this week and get those to her. I did forward a copy of the ARD, however.
Okay, and as previously discussed, that ARD was really not a complete ARD as ARDs are supposed to be in the real world, correct?
Yes, it was abbreviated.
And that's no fault of your own or Ms. Grissom, that's the school district did that.
That is the district, correct.
And so you're going to request that a new ARD be done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In regards to the issue with Lane working, so you've decided now that he's not going to be able to work because of what he did last night, correct?
Correct.
And he's fully aware of that?
He has been made aware of that, yes.
Okay. And has his therapist given any recommendations in regards to what can motivate this child to engage in school and not run or do drugs or anything that he's doing, the behaviors he's doing? Has his therapist recommended anything?
Ms. Mitchell has not.
Okay. Has she addressed these issues with him?
No, she has not.
So what is she doing in therapy?
She's really talking about his behaviors at the RTC.
Okay.
She's addressing those behaviors.
Okay. And in regards to the grief counseling, I mean, I think that was actually discussed several months ago. So it hasn't begun for Lane as well?
Yes, ma'am. Even though I recommended that, I asked for it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is it that Belong can do to ensure that these things are getting done? As the joint managing conservator of this child, isn't it Belong's responsibility that these court orders are followed and that this child is getting what he needs?
Yes, ma'am, I can continue to press the service providers.
Okay, and do you think it might be necessary to go above even your supervisor and get a program director or somebody involved to make sure that these things are done?
We can speak with state office to ask for assistance.
Okay, and you understand that when a court orders something, it needs to be done in a timely fashion unless it can't for a verifiable reason.
I do understand.
Okay. And in the future, will you please provide my office and Ms. Grissom with all documentation in regards to this child?
Yes, ma'am.
School, counseling notes, psychological evaluations, medical, everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Saldivar?
Yes, so because of the incident last night, placement has given notice or will give notice soon, is that correct?
That's correct. I will be speaking with her in depth after court.
Okay, and so are we going to wait to request a new ARD when he is moved, or what's the plan for that?
They have 15 days to respond. I can do that. She stated that she will go ahead with the discharge, but there have been other instances where they've simply stopped the process and allow Lane to stay. If she decides that she will keep him at the RTC, I will go ahead and request another ARD.
Now, if they do decide to keep him there at the RTC, do you think it's in his best interest to remain there, given the problems that he's had so far?
I would like for him to stay. They've made some strides with Lane when we take into consideration the former placement. However, he's running again. I don't think that it is a long-term solution. This RTC has some level of freedom for Lane, and it's proving to be difficult.
And even prior to him running, he was requesting that he wanted to leave with his friends off campus. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so the department, if moved, will look for a more restrictive RTC. Is that correct?
We will attempt, yes. We will try.
And I understand that you're still looking for the specialist to set that up. When can the department get an update for the parties on when that could be done?
I can endeavor for next week.
Okay. Are there any other orders that you believe Lane needs at this time?
And not at this time. We can start with the reevaluation and working on the present orders.
Okay, and Lane has made or expressed an interest in doing a GED program. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what are the barriers for allowing him to do a GED program?
Lane is not up to grade level.
Okay. Did you have that conversation with him on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pass the witness, Judge.
All right, I'm going to try to wrap this up. I will say that these cases are the most difficult that we have. And when you have a child with multiple issues, mental health issues, developmental disabilities, I don't know the extent of his diagnosis, but I know that it's very difficult. And I think everybody's trying to do the best they can. I will find that the mother is in compliance with the plan of service and doing what she needs to do. It looks like the only thing that was ordered by the court was the counseling and the parenting. And, those parenting classes are difficult to come by that would be appropriate. I don't want her just taking some random parenting class. So, I do think that at this point, I'm going to continue all the court's orders in this case, but I do think it would be appropriate to get, your management at Belong involved in this. I don't know how the structure works there for sure, but get somebody higher up to try to help facilitate this. I've had a few other cases where we've had really hard to place older children, and frequently people from, the administration have appeared at the hearings and are aware and trying to help get these services done. So I think that it's appropriate to reach out to them to help facilitate, particularly if he's going to have to be moved. That's going to be a challenge. And then he's going to have to start over at whatever his next placement is. And I do also think that you need to make sure that your administration knows that he's been ordered to have a developmental specialist and a neuropsych eval. I don't know what the holdup with those are, but they need to figure out how to get that done. And that's a prior, that's not me, that's a prior court order that needs to be done. And these developmental specialists, I don't know how many are available there, but they need to be on all the cases that are like this. I do think also it's important to note that because it is a joint managing conservatorship case, that the mother and Ms. Fuller, as well as Mr. Saldivar, need to, receive all documentation.
Your Honor, can I ask one thing? If the neuropsych and the developmental specialists are not assigned or not done prior to the next hearing, I would ask that you order someone from Belong who is higher up, I don't know who that would be, appear before the court and testify why this is not happening. There was a court order 3 months ago.
Right. I think that's a good idea, and that kind of gets you off the hook. I know that, Ms. Powell, you don't have a lot of control over that, but your superiors and Ms. Knopp's superiors need to know that this is important. You can't just not follow a court order. So if that's not done, then I think somebody from the administration of Belong needs to be present, or somebody from state office with DFPS needs to be present to explain why that's not feasible.
And I would also ask that the death benefits be returned to Ms. Grissom so she can see her child. Those were benefits.
I don't know if that's within the department's purview, because that's through the Social Security Department. And they, if the child's not in the home, I don't think they're going to send him the money. The money is for him. So, I agree with your concern, but on the other hand, I don't know that that's within the department's purview. I think they
were able to do it on another case, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, I think they can follow up with it. I'm not going to order that because I'm not sure what it can be done, but our next hearing is February 13th at 10:30. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered by that hearing. And I think it'd probably be a really good idea to have somebody else higher up from Belong or with the department to appear at that hearing. Even if some of these issues are addressed, it's not a bad idea. So
I'll put that in the order, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, well, good luck to you, Ms. Grissom. I think that I would just encourage you to keep visiting as much as you can. And obviously you're having phone contact, so that's really good, and continue with your counseling. And meanwhile, we'll try to see if we can find some appropriate parenting. Maybe a new placement would have something like that. You would think the placement might have some resources for that sort of thing. So, but I don't know. All right, then if there's nothing further, then all parties may be excused. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good afternoon.
Case set for a permanency hearing / final trial on the merits. So we have Ms. Kyler Green here for the department, and who's your representative?
Ms. De Los Santos, Your Honor.
Ms. De Los Santos. We have Ms. Savage representing the child in this case. Ms. Swallow represents the mother. She's trying to get her online right now. Ms. Acevedo represents the father. Do you expect to have a client present, Ms. Acevedo?
No, Judge. I have the unknown father. And Judge, if I can, I don't think I'm a huge party, but I don't think I got the exhibits.
That might be possible that you were left off. I'm sorry. I think you might have months ago, but not most recently.
So has one of the fathers been excluded?
Yes, he was excluded by DNA, Judge. So
there's only a
unknown, correct?
Okay. So in that case, really the only role for Ms. Acevedo is just to determine whether the department's made reasonable efforts to locate an absent parent. So
yes, Your Honor. And at the last, the reason for the extension was the fact that we had not received the paternity registry search back from where we get it.
All right. Why don't you go ahead? You want to start with the exhibits, Ms. Kyler Green, just so we can get it out of the way?
I would, Your Honor. Would you like for me to just read them aloud to the court?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Petitioner's exhibit number 1 is the certified copy of the citation return for the mother. Petitioner exhibit 2 is certified copy of the citation return for the alleged father. Exhibit 3 is the temporary orders. 4 is the status order. 5 is a copy of the family plan of service for the mother. 6 is a certified copy of the family plan of service for the alleged father. 7 is a family plan of service for the unknown father. 8 is a certified copy of the initial perm hearing. 9 is the perm before final. 10 are the DNA results, Your Honor, that go to Exhibit 11, which is the order signed by the court adjudicating non-parentage of the alleged father. And 12 is the certificate of the paternity registry search.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Collard Green.
I'll call Ms. De Los Santos, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed. She's been sworn.
Thank you. Ms. De Los Santos, what's your role in this case?
Judge, if I may.
Okay.
The jail had noticed that my client was supposed to be present. She's incarcerated. If we are proceeding with trial at this point, I'm going to object. The lady who was supposed to coordinate for my client to be present has stepped away and I cannot get through. I previously coordinated this, and I believe because my client is incarcerated and I know she wanted to attend this proceeding, that we reset the final trial and we move forward on the permanency hearing only.
Well, what if we start the trial? Because I do feel like there's an issue if the mother wants to be present and is not present. Could we proceed with some testimony and deal with the unknown father? Then that way we could dismiss Ms. Acevedo today and then recess and come back at a later date to address the mother.
I can tailor her testimony to just the father, Your Honor.
Is that acceptable to you, Ms. Swallow?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
Okay. All right, let's just go ahead and proceed and get as much done as you can without dealing with the mother's rights at this point, Ms. Collard Green.
Understood, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. De Los Santos, do you understand the court's parameters?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about, there was an alleged father in this case initially?
Yeah, a legal father.
Okay, what was it? Thank you. And what was his name?
Mark Martinez Alvarez.
And what made him a legal father?
He is married to Cassie Hernandez.
Okay, and so was there, what was done in order to determine whether or not he was actually the biological father of Azriel?
A DNA test.
Okay, and have you, was that DNA test completed?
Yes, it was.
And have you reviewed it?
Yes.
And what was determined?
That he was not the father.
Okay, so where did we get the information of Mr. Alvarez?
Ms. Hernandez let me know that she was married to Mr. Martinez Alvarez.
Okay, and so what sort of were you able to ask her? Were you able to ask her whether or not she believed he was the actual biological father of her child?
Yes, I was able to ask her.
Okay, and did this court order DNA to be established?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to speak to Mr. Martinez Alvarez?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and did he give any sort of indication as to whether or not he actually believed he was the biological father?
He said he was not.
Okay, what did he say specifically?
He stated that he had been incarcerated for a couple of years, so that there was no way he could be the father.
That it was physically impossible?
Correct.
Were you able to ask him if he had any indication as to who the biological father could be?
I did.
And did he have any idea?
No, he said he had no idea.
Okay. Were you able to speak to Ms. Alvarez about, or to the mother in this case, about any possible names for fathers that she could provide?
Yes, I did ask her if she could provide me with any names, and she stated no.
Were you able to speak to any family members about any potential fathers?
Yes, I spoke with her great-grandmother. With her grandmother, Pilar Hernandez, and her mother, Belinda Gonzalez, and they both stated that they didn't have any names.
Okay. And there was a paternity registry search that was conducted?
Correct.
Okay. And that's typical in cases where we have an unknown father?
Yes.
Okay. And were there any findings based on that?
No.
Okay. Were you able to find any family friends or anyone else who you could request, or that you could, who could maybe help ascertain whether or not there was another man who could be a potential father?
At the home, Ms. Pilar Hernandez's home, whenever I would go ask if Ms. Hernandez was there, I would ask if they had any idea of who the father might be, and they would tell me no. It was just other family members that were there.
Okay. At this point, do you feel like you've exercised all due diligence in trying to find a father for this child?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is there anything else you could have done?
No.
And just to be clear, every time that you asked the mother for any name of a man who could potentially be the father, she provided you with none?
She did not provide me with any.
Okay. And do you think it's within this child's best interest for the court to determine that there is no father out there, and therefore terminate any unknown father's rights?
Yes.
And why is that?
No one's come forward for Osriel. The fact that, I mean, if somebody knows that she was born and they're just not coming forward to claim her as their child.
And given the circumstances in which she was born, do you think that it's likely that there is any parent, any father out there who is attempting to come forward and is just not able to?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, let's see. So Ms. Acevedo, do you have any questions for Ms. De Los Santos?
I guess just a couple, Judge. I guess, Ms. De Los Santos, how long have you been on this case?
Since the beginning of the case.
But you were not the investigator?
Not the investigator, no. But since it came to conservatorship.
Okay, and did you review all those notes?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and how old is Osriel?
Osriel, she is now a year old and 1 month.
And how old was she when she came into care?
It was right after birth.
Was it from the hospital?
Yes.
And did you review all the hospital records?
I did.
Did anyone sign the birth certificate at the hospital?
There was no birth certificate done at the hospital because she was not born at the hospital.
To your knowledge, did anyone appear with mom when she was in the hospital?
No.
To your knowledge, did anyone ask who the father was?
With the investigator, yes.
Was she given an answer?
She was given a name, yes.
What name was she given?
The man that helped her in the RV, Jimmy Correa.
Did you name him as a father in this suit?
No.
Why not?
He stated he was not the father. He was just allowing her to use his RV to give birth.
How did the investigator get that name?
I think it was just because that was the man that helped her. Because she was giving birth out in the streets and he provided his RV to allow her to give birth there in the RV instead of out in the streets.
Okay, was she actually staying in that RV?
No.
Were they friends in any way?
According to the affidavit, it was just friends, like allegedly drug addict friends that they all hung out together.
So because he said he wasn't the father, there was no follow-up?
No. It was just a friend that let her use his house.
Okay, and I'm just curious, how exactly did that name come about? Did they ask mom, or it was just suggested from somebody?
From the affidavit that I read, it was because he allowed her to use the RV. That was the man that was her friend at the time.
Okay. And let me go back. After that, while in the hospital, do you know if anyone ever confirmed with mom who the father was?
That, no.
Okay. Do you know if after that anyone confirmed with mom whether Jimmy Correa was the father or not?
I asked her because I saw that name in the affidavit and she said no.
Did you ask her how many boyfriends she had in the last 10, 11 months?
When I would ask her about that, she would say that it was a light. That's all she saw.
It was what? I'm sorry?
A light.
A light?
Like it was a ball of light. Like that's because I would ask her, like, did you ever see a face? Like anything happening? And she would say it was a ball of light.
And that was in response to who is the father?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, no one has come forward to claim that he's the father?
No.
No one's reached out to you?
No.
No one's reached out to placement?
No.
And all these family members that you've talked to, no one has reached out to them?
No.
I'll pass it.
Ms. Swallow, do you have any questions of this witness pertaining to alleged fathers?
Yes, Judge. Thank you. Ms. De Los Santos, isn't it true that my client has no idea who the father is, as far as you know?
Correct.
And isn't it true that you have no idea who the father is of this baby either?
That is correct.
And that if we knew who the father was, that individual would have been brought into this lawsuit?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I pass the witness.
All right. Let's see, who does that leave? Ms. Savage.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Ms. Kyler Green?
Not in regards to the unknown father, Your Honor.
So what are you asking the court to do today as to an unknown father?
We're asking the court to terminate any unknown father's rights based on the exhibits that were previously admitted and the Ms. De Los Santos, her testimony, and that I suppose we just reset for the rest of this.
Any objection to the court going ahead and making a finding? Well, let me ask you, Ms. Acevedo, are you satisfied that there's been efforts made to attempt to identify a father and none have been located?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything anybody else would like to add, just as to any father or alleged father or unknown father? All right, then at this time, the court, as I previously said, I'll admit exhibits 1 through 12 without objection. The court will find as to Mr. Alvarez that he has been excluded as the father in this case, and the court will find that the department has made diligent efforts to attempt to locate any other alleged father in this case, but none has been located despite the efforts of the department and other parties in this case to attempt to identify a father, including the mother's inability to be able to name anyone. Therefore, the court will terminate any unknown father as to this child. And I don't remember the section 263. I believe it's under section 263, but you can include that in the order. I think you know which section, but that's for basically failure to register with the paternity registry, and despite due diligence of the department, that no father has been identified. As to the mother, the court finds that she does desire to be present. This is a hearing regarding her parental rights. Ms. Swallow did make efforts to have her available since she's incarcerated, and the court feels like it would be violating her rights to proceed to trial without her being allowed to be present today. So we'll recess this case as to the mother only. Court will dismiss Ms. Acevedo from her service in this case since I terminated on an unknown father, and will proceed. I don't know what date. If you'll want to put that on Judge Falkenberg's next docket, Ms. Greenlee, or how you want to do that. But this is visiting Judge Morris.
I'm taking a
hearing
look
the
at
case for
dates
Judge
right now.
Falkenberg. We're here today for a status hearing. So the court will find that all parties who are named in this case are present. They were here for a status hearing, so I'll let you proceed, Ms. Kyler Green.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please address Ms. Warren and have her turn her camera on if possible?
Ms. Warren, do you have a camera that you can turn on? And then who is Ms. Santos Helton?
It's placement, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Warren, did you hear me?
Can't tell if she's actually there.
Right, I can't either.
Judge, usually she has a really hard time with service, so my guess is she's there. She's just struggling with service.
Okay. Well, what I will say, Ms. Warren, if you're there and you can hear me, I need you to try to get on the call and at least answer so that we know that you're actually present.
She raised her hand, Judge, so I'm assuming that means she can hear us.
Well, I didn't see her because it was just a picture, a photo.
No, but she raised her virtual hand when you asked if she was there. So
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't realize she had a virtual hand.
Okay, I can proceed, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead. Let's go ahead and proceed, and we'll figure this out.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Rod Buckner. Are you the caseworker in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was there a family group conference held for the parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when was that held?
Yesterday on the 13th.
Okay. And let's start with Miss Warren first. Was she present for this?
Yes, ma'am.
Virtually?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What were the services that were discussed?
For Ms. Warren?
Yes.
For Ms. Warren, we would like for her to complete random UAs and hair tests, followed by an Ozark assessment, also a psychological assessment, followed by psychological assessment, followed in all recommendations, individual counseling. She will also have to engage in parenting classes. And then we are asking for her to engage in our domestic violence through family prevention services, which is considered BILP. And then also ensuring that she participated in parent-child visits, and then also maintain employment as well and stable living.
Where is she currently living?
Currently right now she is residing in Divine.
In the home where the children were removed from?
Yes, ma'am.
Does she have employment?
Currently not right now.
Okay. When was she last employed?
I do believe she told me back in October, so last month.
And what is, to your knowledge, is she currently working towards obtaining employment?
Yes.
How so?
She just told me she has just been filling out job applications, but nobody has not contacted her back for an interview.
Okay. These services that were discussed at the family group conference, do you believe that these are narrowly tailored to address the needs that and problems that brought the children into the care of the department in the first place?
Yes, ma'am.
And how so?
Due to, especially with the drug use, the reason why there was a removal of the children, I do so addressing these will also give Ms. Warren a clear understanding how drugs and also alcohol can impact herself and her children. So making sure that she's aware of all these services so she can be set up for success in the future, so she know to utilize those coping skills in the event that she do have the urge to use.
Okay. And this case arose out of this legal case arose out of a family-based case. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So do you know if there are prior drug tests that the department has in regards to Miss Warren?
The ones that I have seen, that is correct. Yes.
Okay. And so moving forward, the request for the random UAs and the hair test, that's to establish a baseline for this case moving forward. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Has Miss Warren provided any drug tests for you as of yet?
She's only conducted one, and that was actually the hair
Objection, Kelsey.
I'm not asking for the results yet, Your Honor.
Right. I'll overrule the objection.
Okay. So just, I didn't hear your answer. She did conduct a hair follicle test.
Yes.
Okay. Besides the one test that she has taken, has she begun any other services?
Not at this current time, no, ma'am.
Okay. Have the referrals been sent out by you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there, and understanding we just had this family group conference yesterday, are there any other steps that are needed by you to occur first, or are you just waiting for these services to begin?
We're just waiting for them to begin.
Okay. Did Ms. Warren indicate an understanding as to the services that are being required to be made a court order?
Yes.
Okay. And did she sign the family plan?
No, she did not. She was not able to sign, but she did say that she wanted to use the date that I provided her a copy as her signature.
Okay. Okay. And did she indicate an understanding and a willingness to engage in these services?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And she has a copy?
Yes.
And are you requesting the court make an order of these services?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Let's talk about Mr. Urbina. He is the alleged father for who?
From my understanding, all three of the children.
Well, I believe he's the presumed father for the first two, but is he the alleged father for the youngest?
For Bailey, yes.
And is that because he's not on the birth certificate?
To my understanding, that is correct.
Okay. And is that because, do you know why he's not on the birth certificate?
According to Mr. Warren, there was some concerns regarding if the child is his. But he didn't give like a clear, definitive answer as to why he wasn't on the birth certificate, as if he wasn't, present for the birth.
Okay. Do you know if he was present for her birth?
I do not know.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Mr. Urbina's family plan of service. Was there a family group conference conducted for him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was he present?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he, what were the services that were discussed for him?
For Mr. Urbini, we also requested for him to do random UAs and hair tests. And if possible, he will submit to an Ozark assessment. We are asking for him to conduct a psychological and also follow any and all recommendations from the psychological, while also engage in individual counseling. We're also asking for him to complete parenting classes and also engage in domestic violence services through our family service prevention program through BIP, and then also maintaining employment and also attending his parent-child visits.
Is he currently employed?
Yes, ma'am.
Has he provided proof of that employment to you?
No, ma'am.
Have you requested it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is that something that you typically would request?
Yes.
Okay. Where is he residing?
He also to reside in Divine.
At the same house as Miss Warren?
Yes, ma'am.
So despite the no contact order that was issued by the court originally, the parents have decided that they are a couple?
That is correct.
And so they intend to move forward in this case as a couple?
Yes.
So are you requesting on behalf, well, I guess not on behalf of the parents, but in regards to what they've indicated to you, that the no contact order be lifted?
Correct.
Okay. And have you discussed with the parents what it means for them to move forward in this case as a couple in regards to each other's success or not success?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did Mr. Urbina indicate an understanding as to the services that were discussed at the family group conference?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did he sign his family plan?
No, ma'am, he did not sign as well. So he wanted to use the date that I provided the copy of the service plan and went over it with him as his signature.
Okay. And he has a copy?
Yes.
Okay. And has he begun any of the services?
Not at this current time.
Okay. Are all the referrals sent in?
Yes.
And is there anything that is waiting on Belong or anything for you to do before these services can begin?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are you asking for Mr. Urbina's family plan of service to be made an order of the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's talk about visits. Where are the children currently placed?
They're currently with paternal grandmother, but it's considered their great grandmother in Divine, Texas.
Okay. And is that placement at this time safe and appropriate?
Correct.
And are all the children's needs being met?
Yes, ma'am.
Have there been any visits that have been exercised?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you been able to supervise those visits?
Yes, ma'am.
And are they appropriate?
Yes.
Do you have any concerns?
Not at this current time.
And did the parents visit together?
Yes, they do.
Have they brought any supplies for the children, diapers, anything like that?
Yes.
Okay. Are you requesting any child support be provided?
To
placement?
Yes.
From the parents?
Yes.
Okay. Are you asking for in kind or for there to be money provided specifically to the placement?
Money specifically provided to the placement.
Okay. Through the AG's office?
Yes.
Okay. And is that based on the father's indication that he is fully employed?
That is correct. And he's willing to provide placement with everything that they need for the children.
Okay. Thank you. Are the children, do the children have any medical needs?
For Chloe, which is the oldest, no, ma'am. I know with Stormy, there was some discussion regarding her speech. So we are trying to conduct an ECI for her to kind of see what services that would need to be recommended. far as the youngest, which is Bailey, there has been a lot of complication regarding her respiratory. And then she's also have tested positive within that. So we're just all trying to clear up and understanding if there was issues like in utero that is now coming to the forefront regarding her health.
What did she test positive for?
If I'm not mistaken.
Objection here, Sayona. And
Your
not
Honor,
relevant to the status hearing.
For clarification, this child's in the context of respiratory issues, or if she means she tested positive for drugs. I just want a clarification for the court.
I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead, Ms. Sherrod Buckner.
You know, but I would ask that her answer be limited to exactly what Ms. Kyler Green asked, not which drugs or which issues, just what type.
I can ask a more specific question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Buckner, when you say that Bailey tested positive, do you mean in regards to her respiratory distress that she was experiencing, or she tested positive for illicit drugs?
She tested positive for RSV.
I understand there was discussion as to obtaining any medical records of Bailey to determine whether or not there's any sort of medical issues that her placement needs to be aware of to better get her treated. Are you working with the parents to obtain those medical records?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is it prudent that the parents provide any and all necessary releases of information in order to get those?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you aware of a sober date for either parent?
No, ma'am.
Have you asked them?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is that something that you would typically ask parents in cases that involve drugs?
Yes.
And do you think that's an important date to be able to work from for the parents' sobriety or future sobriety?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Ms. Acosta? Where'd she go?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just briefly, Mr. Buckner, just to clarify, were you asking for the father to pay in-kind child support or customary guidelines child support?
From my understanding, it'll be guideline.
And do you have his pay record?
Not at this current time, no, ma'am.
Okay. Is it possible for us to meet and have a staffing regarding the child support so that we can address it in a meeting and get his income information?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Ms. Pearsall?
Now, mom participated in the family group conference yesterday, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And she indicated she was willing to do anything and everything to be reunified with her children.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And she's been doing visits and submitting to drug tests prior to today, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But the list of her services and providers were given to her literally yesterday.
No, ma'am. She had a copy prior to the family group conference.
Okay. When was the actual list of services provided to her?
Can I get that information for you?
Approximately. Can you give us a date?
You know, I don't think I need to know that. What I need to know is whether the parents understand what they need to do going forward. And I don't think that's a helpful date.
Okay, I'll move on, Judge. When did you send in the referrals for mother services?
I do believe around October 30th, like that week of October 30th.
Okay. So have all of the referrals gone in and are they ready to get started? Are you waiting for any of the providers to get back to you?
So all of our 2054s have been sent in. So it's just a matter of the service providers setting up those services for intakes.
Okay. So are we waiting for mom to set it up or are we waiting for the service providers?
So mom just need to contact for her parenting classes. She just need to contact San Antonio for Fatherhood to engage in parenting. She already have a scheduled date for her psychological. So Ms. Warren also is just supposed to call Ozark to have that assessment scheduled. And then the individual counseling is just so will be set up through the individual therapist once there is availability.
Okay. So mom at this point has done what she can to start her service.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you're aware that Ms. Warren has been found indigent by the court, correct?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Sure. You are aware that mother has been found indigent by the court at a prior hearing?
No, ma'am, I'm not aware.
Okay. Were you present at all the prior hearings?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so you don't know what was ordered.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you are aware that the mother is unemployed.
That she's not employed?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're aware that neither your attorney or Nya's attorney filed a motion to assess child support for today.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just so we're clear, for the mother, are you also asking for a staffing, or are you asking that she be ordered to pay guideline child support, which is a percentage of the zero money she makes?
Right now, I would not be asking for a staffing for her because she does not work at this current time.
Okay, so you're not asking for any child support to be ordered from the mother, just the father?
Correct.
Okay, now the questions.
Right. Ms. Savage?
Yes, Ms. Buckner. Isn't it true that neither parent completed the court-ordered nail drug test that was ordered by Judge Falkenberg?
That is correct.
Isn't it true mother is denying any drug usage? Her drug tests are because of environmental exposure, as per mom?
That is correct.
Isn't it true there's concerns that 2 of mom's children have tested positive for drugs at birth?
And I'm going to object to relevance. This is a status hearing.
Well, it has to do with the services that would be required, so I'm going to allow it.
You can answer.
You may answer that, Ms. Bruckner.
To my knowledge, I do believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. Do you think it would be appropriate for this court to order Ms. Warren to complete inpatient drug rehab?
You know, that's going to call for speculation. She's not an expert and she's not qualified to answer that.
In your opinion, do you think it would be appropriate for the court to order inpatient drug rehab for the mother?
Yeah, Judge, again, I'm going to object. She's not an expert.
Let's just stop here. It's been a long day, and I'm not going to go down the weeds on this. I will allow Ms. Savage to make whatever recommendations that she feels are necessary. I do think personally it would be better to have those hair tests prior to making any recommendations. However, if the parents aren't going to take those hair tests, then that's going to be a problem. So we need to get that done. And also actually, I think the judge ordered nail test and ordered the children submit to hair tests is what the notes that I'm reading say. So how can we get that done, Ms. Bruckner?
Yes, ma'am. So the 2 children, the oldest 2 children, Miss Stormy and Chloe, they've already conducted their hair test. So I've already done that.
Okay. And then what needs to happen for the parents to get tested?
For the nail bed test, I was not able to successfully get them to complete that test due to the growth of their nails, and the facility was not able to conduct that test. So I had to go a different route and get a hair test follicle for them. But
you did get hair tests on them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
I'll move on. I'll just I'll make my recommendations to the court. I'll pass the witness.
Go ahead, Ms. Savage. What are your recommendations?
The 2 older children are placed with a paternal great-grandmother. The department was ordered to set up childcare for Stormy. She'll be 3 in December. And so I'm re-urging that order that will help stabilize placement. We've got an older grandmother who could use the additional support. So if that daycare could be set up as soon as possible. I would ask that the department be ordered to obtain Bailey's medical records. She's having a lot of aspiration problems and respiratory problems. And I think that there's been a lot that happened before removal that we don't know. And if we want to get an accurate diagnosis, we need those records. I'd re-urge the nail order drug test since neither parent has completed it. I do think inpatient is going to be warranted for mom. The fact she's still denying any kind of use when we've got 2 kids who test positive is a major concern. And then for child support, I don't think we need a staffing. I think the court could order Mr. Urbina to provide 2 months of pay stubs so we could calculate guideline. And I'd ask that the mother be ordered to pay in-kind support. For a temporary order, we deferred child support to today, so everyone had notice. And only mom pay in-kind support if she goes to inpatient. If she's going to be out, she can get a job, she can support her kids. Otherwise, the placement's meeting the needs, Your Honor, and I'd advocate for that they continue at this time.
Yeah, what I read from Judge Falkenberg's notes are that the younger child was supposed to remain in foster care. Is that not the case?
Yes, Your Honor, she's remaining at her foster home, and I think that placement needs to continue until we get an accurate diagnosis of what's going on. She's also too much. She's itty bitty. She's too much for paternal grandmother to handle, so she needs to sit put. I think there's an aunt who's been identified. So if we add that home study ordered on her, department has her name. I believe it was is it Leticia? What's your aunt's name, Mr. Urbina? I had it somewhere.
Betty Wattis.
Betty Wattis. So if we can have that home study ordered on her.
Okay. I thought Ms. Buckner said all 3 children were placed with relatives, so I was confused about that. All right. So at this time, the court will find that both parents have been provided with an FGC. They've been provided with family plans of service. They've been given copies of those services, and they understand what services they need to participate in going forward. I will continue the children in the current placements, and if we need to order a home study on that person that Ms. Savage named, we can do that. I'm going to order that Mr. Urbina provide 2 months worth of pay stubs to the department within 7 days. And if those are not provided, then I will enter an order for minimum wage child support to be ordered through the Attorney General's office, because we're not going to wait forever to get some kind of proof of income. I'm also going to order that the parents do need to follow through with the nail test. It's not really a new order. That's what Judge Falkenberg ordered. You all need to know that you don't trim your nails down. Don't do anything to inhibit the ability to have that test done. Let's see. I'm not going to order the mother into inpatient care right now, but we'll see I don't know if you all have the results of the hair test back, and we need to see what the results of the nail test are. I do want to follow up with that Stormy needs the ECI referral and the daycare referral. Those were all addressed at the last hearing also, so that needs to be completed.
And a lifting of the no contact order between the parents, Your Honor, since they are back in a relationship together.
Okay, who did the no contact order?
Judge Falkenberg.
Well, I'm going to defer on that and let him make that determination. I mean, well, they're together. I understand that, but I don't know all the reasons why he entered that order. So.
Well, Your Honor, I guess in regards to that, it puts us in a sticky situation. If they want to do visitations together, then we're helping facilitate a violation of the court order. But if that's what they're doing and they're doing the visitation, it makes it impossible for the department and belong to have these visitations. So would you like for those visits to be separate?
Well, it seems like they should be separate until we get an adjustment of that order. And I didn't enter that order, and so I'm not really prepared to rescind it. So I would just say those orders. I mean, I feel like that you all, as the parents, are not really understanding that an order of the court is an order of the court. It just seems like you think that it's a suggestion. If he orders no contact, you go ahead and have visits together. If he orders a nail test, you're not going to take that. And so I want you all to understand that this is a serious matter, that your rights are subject to being restricted or even terminated. And it's imperative that you follow through. If you all have drug issues, if there's kids who've been born positive with drugs and have issues, then those issues need to be addressed. It's really critical because that's harmful to children. And it could be the reason why Bailey has RSVP. I don't know. I'm not making a finding of that because I don't know. But I think we need to get the medical records to be able to evaluate exactly what it is that is, creating issues with these children. And so I think that Judge Falkenberg made very specific and clear orders at the last hearing, which was just in October. It hasn't even been a month ago. And so, I think it's imperative that you all follow those orders until such time as Judge Falkenberg makes a determination that they're no longer necessary.
Your Honor, can I make one request?
Okay.
We would like the home study on Betty Horse to be expedited.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
But I will say that I don't want the child moved unless all parties agree. I think you need to involve CASA, and I didn't ask CASA. Do you have any additional reports or requests that you'd like to make, Ms. Krieger?
Nothing further at this time. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. The court will find at this time that the children should continue in their current placement, that those placements are meeting their needs and are in the best interest of the children. If the expedited home study is approved, then I still think that needs to, since this is a fragile little baby, I think there should be time enough to advise the attorney ad litem, the CASA, and the attorneys and the parents of the impending move before it happens. And if anybody has an objection, then they would need to bring that before the court. Let me see, look at my notes here. All right, is there anything else I'm missing?
Not from the department, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from anybody? Do you all, I don't know if Ms. Warren is actually present there or not, but you understand the court's admonition, Mr. Urbina?
Yes, ma'am. I wasn't cutting my nails or nothing. Just my nails are always short to begin with. And when the judge gave us a set date to do it, my nails were short. And I let them try to go. When I went to that clinic, they said they were too short. Even my ones on my feet were too short, so they cut hair. So it's not that I'm trying to cut my nails and trying to avoid this. And my last hair follicle test was negative. So I'm not trying to, avoid doing a nail bed test. So I'm actually letting them grow. So I don't know when the next test is going to be for the nail bed test.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're set for a next hearing on March 12th at 10:30. That hearing will be very important because it's halfway through the 1-year time frame that the state allows you to be able to demonstrate that you can provide a safe and stable, drug-free, violence-free home for your children. So I'll expect for you both to have a lot of things accomplished when we come back at that date. Then we're set for a permanency review on June 11th. You don't need to write this down because we'll be circulating a scheduling order. The final trial will be in August. I just want to give you an idea of when those dates are coming up. Is there anything from anybody else then?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing further, all parties may be excused. And I'm asking Ms. Kyler Green and Ms. Greenlee to stay on for just a second.